episode of AI Insights, the AI podcast from the Mediennet in Brandenburg. I'm your host, Paul Probst, and today it's an episode where we're closing the year somehow with not talking about what happened in 2025, but more what's coming in AI in 26 and afterwards. And for that talk, I have somebody on the show that I had before. And since we had such a good conversation, I thought, who would be better to talk about the future of AI in the next years than Dani?
Hello, thank you for having me again.
It's great to have you back on the show. And to close the year together and look towards the future of AI, I want to know what you personally see for the next years. For yourself, what you're looking forward, stuff like that. So great to have you.
Thank you so much.
For starters, in the year 25, I think the coolest word in AI was agents. Everybody was talking about agents and still is. And I think still a lot of people really don't know what it is or have different ideas of what an agent is. Now I wonder what's going to be the word or the thing that 26 would be the word that people talk about. Do you have an idea of what that could be? What could be the next step that comes? Or is it just like an incremental thing that evolves? How do you see 26?
Yeah, agents is an interesting one. Embedded into that, we can read a lot about outsourcing certain tasks, especially tasks that maybe we would originally dedicate a lot of administrative headspace to, and we want to outsource that so that more higher agency work can take more of our attention and more time. So I certainly see that being embedded in more use cases and most growth areas, particularly when it's quite routine work and something quite repetitive. So agents in terms of customer service are already widespread, but even agents assisting us in more administrative work than that, I certainly see. The other trend I can foresee, not just for 26, but for the next few years, actually has a deeper connotation in our search for companionships and connection. And rather than outsourcing administrative tasks and finding assistance in agency in that respect, the trend for AI that I foresee goes towards building relationships and finding companionship. And that has both a strength and a weakness, and something that will require a greater nuance in how we monitor it and how we judge whether it's working and whether it's not in a more moral sense.
Mm-hmm. So even more personalized agents or...
Even beyond agents. I mean, agents really speak to our use of AI in the workspace, and I certainly see agents being more deeply embedded, and even agents speaking to another agent and creating agent systems and system structures of agents working together. Cross verticals, cross departments, for sure. They would definitely see a pathway where these systems start to be deeper and deeper embedded. But on a personal level, the trends that I see or foresee with AI is changing our relationship to AI from one where we're outsourcing tasks to one where we seek a sense of companionship and reassurance, which all speaks again to a complicated relationship AI when it comes to psychological safety and our search for psychological safety.
That's an interesting point. In the last episode, I talked with my guest about the idea of OpenAI introducing erotica in their chatbots. So from, I think, 2026 on, if you're older than 18, I think you're allowed to get some spicy conversations with ChatGPT. And I also heard another podcast from Scott Galloway, and he talked about it. And he talks a lot about young male. The question he had was, how will it affect a personal relationship, even in a erotic way, with a bot these young males, because from a bot that always serves your needs and always says yes to everything and always affirms you. What does it make with a grown person, with a teenager? Because we're pretty sure that somehow people will get into those bots even they're not 18, right? Children find a way around, or teenagers find a way around. And I did that with television back when I was young and secretly watching some shows, whatever. Today, it's something different. But what will that do to teenagers when they never heard no from a bot or have these erotic conversations and then go to the real world and talk to women, to girls, and then they hear no. It's like, no, I don't want that. No, I don't want to talk to you. I don't like you, whatever, which happens because there's some people you like and some people you don't. But with a chatbot, it's always liking you. What I want to say is it could be very risky to have something like that, right?
Absolutely. And beyond the teenage mind, this dichotomy that we're seeing between a bot that always agrees with you and always says, that's a good point. Oh, well, great. That's perfect that you bring this up.
I hate it.
And it's validating, offering constant validation for you. And you go out in the real world and you see that isn't constant validation, and there is pushback and there is conflict embedded in that. And conflict resolution needs to happen in real time often. And that's very confrontational and it's uncomfortable. If we expand the conversation, that is not just a difficulty for the teenage mind, but that's difficulty for anybody's mind that's not able to deal with that discomfort and can't understand the nuances of relationships and how to make them work in real time. So I would say that it's not just teenagers and teenage boys. Of course, this is a use case where we can see that, and we can see a possibility where the inability to deal with a no at teenage years in personal relationships could have very negative consequences for their capacity to develop relationships as adults, for sure. That's indisputable.
Work with friction.
Yes, but it doesn't end there. That's a clear use case, but it illuminates a possibility that transcends all humans. If you're unable to deal with conflict or unable to deal with confronting difficult emotions and difficult reactions and confronting no, then that will have consequences far beyond just your personal relationships. It'll be work. It'll be with your children. It's setting an example for your peers. And you're right. This speaks to a growing need for us to think of how do we fit AI into our world, or how do we see AI fitting into our world that goes beyond its technical opportunities and more about, okay, what are the psychological systems that we need to create around our use of AI that will allow us to still build strong relationships and have a secure attachment style in the world that is shining a light on that. AI is shining a light where I think as a species we have a lot of work to do and a lot of difficult conversations to have with ourselves and with our peers.
That is super interesting, and I totally agree with that. And I think of television these days because, for me, television shows, especially on like the öffentlich-rechtlichen, ARD, ZDF, and stuff like that, you find a lot of shows that are super similar. It's always the same because you give the easiest entertainment to the people, and this is easy to produce, and you know what comes out, and you know people will like it and watch it. And what you have these days with, especially OpenAI on the forefront of that, but also comes with Claude now, is this affirmative mindset, you wouldn't say, probably like behavior, where it always tells you, as you said, super great idea, awesome poem that you wrote, not best song ever heard, whatever. And then OpenAI reduced it a bit in the version 5 of their bot. Coming from 4.0 or 4.1 or whatever it was. And then suddenly everybody was like, wow, why is my chatbot not as affirmative as it was before? I want to have that back. It is super neutral, But I don't want that. I want somebody telling me how great I am all the time. And then I think the companies are like some are in have the difficulty between how can this can be a productive tool that really helps you and not just tells you how great you are, and then because this from failure, from disagreement, as you said, from friction, there comes progress, right? And if I have a chatbot that behaves like you're great, then we don't make progress as much as we could if we say, come on, sorry, your business idea is shitty. Let's do something else, like straight up. And Sam Altman wants us to use the bot as much as we can, right? Because he makes money with that. So, and this is the same with the television that I said before. They want us to watch telly, so that give us the stuff that is easy to consume and that has no friction.
Yes.
But we need friction for progress. So I wonder how we can solve this problem. Like give people what they want, but also what they need.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very deep question that doesn't just speak to AI.
Yeah.
Our capacity to be fine with friction and in fact seek it out, because friction is the gateway to personal growth, is a cultural need. It's not just limited to AI. Yeah, I mean, it speaks to a broader question. If the AI models that have become such a commonplace in our day-to-day lives now were less agreeable at the beginning, would we have embraced them as much?
Yeah.
And if we didn't embrace them as much and they were more disagreeable to begin with, where would we be in our reliance and our work with AI now?
Yeah, it's true. So this is the thing that's going to be interesting, how that evolves and how much we are used to or getting used to interact in a new way instead of doing stuff that we did before in a way that we did it. So maybe we find a middle ground, and maybe OpenAI finds us way back to, we want to create something really new, something that brings something to the society and not just a chatbot that keeps people going and let them create some videos that nobody cares about, right?
Yeah, sure. I actually think the fact that we are discussing agreeableness as a strength and a weakness is such an important conversation, because we embraced ChatGPT from the beginning. We loved the agreeableness. We loved the self-validation. It felt really good. But then we started to see ramifications pretty quickly on what that means for us. And the fact that we have strong competitors coming into the space now, I think, is brilliant. And it really speaks to the power of open markets and competition, healthy competition, because it's giving us the opportunity to see an alternative. What if we built models that were less agreeable, that pushed back, that had a higher standard that they held us to in order to respond in the way that we needed? We need to be more clear. We needed to express ourselves better. We needed to face the fact that sometimes our ideas weren't great. And to be honest, hearing that from an LLM is significantly less high stakes than hearing that in public from your boss, from someone that you love. So I think it's even more important to be able to deal with lack of agreeableness and get those training wheels on conflict resolution when it's so low stakes when you're talking to a faceless AI.
True. That is always nice to you, actually.
Yeah.
And goes through this process again and again until you solved your problem or understood something and you don't feel like embarrassed to ask a question.
Exactly. And it's always there. Yeah. It's always there. You can ask as many questions, clarify as many things, and its misunderstanding of you is only limited to exactly your words on a screen. It doesn't read tonality. It doesn't read between the lines. It doesn't read body language, which is another blind spot for AI that we will need to take under consideration. I'm sure you've heard the statistics yourself. When we're communicating with another person, 70-something% of that is nonverbal. It's our body language, it's our tone of voice, it's the speed, it's different. All of these sort of nonverbal cues is how we assess meaning. It's not so much what we say. And when it comes to AI, the only part of that conversation, or the only part of that communication, is words on a page. So another trend that I foresee is a greater importance placed on understanding nonverbal cues when it comes to humans.
So you see, like, interacting with bots could also be more like a FaceTime call or something, so that you...
No, I mean, us working with AI will mean that some of those human embedded qualities about reading nonverbal communication will be pushed to the background, and those will require perhaps more active education in that space. Okay, this person said this, but they really meant that. How do we read body language? How do we read between the lines? How do we soften tone in order to still get our message across, but without a certain offense? And you think about it even in terms of cultural differences from one country to the next.
Yeah.
All of that isn't covered in when we speak to an AI. That doesn't even factor into the equation. So another trend I foresee is us creating new systems and new arenas to be able to teach generations that are coming into the workplace on those nonverbal and cultural cues that AI don't take under consideration.
So as a human skill set that we strengthen more.
We will need to.
Yeah.
We will need to.
Okay.
Because the AI doesn't consider that. And at the end of the day, we are tribal beings. We do live and operate in a tribal setting in a society, and we do desire to have human connection. And human connection is naturally built with conflict resolution, communication that goes beyond just the words and goes into deeper meaning, goes into morality, it goes into building trust. All of those are not inbuilt in the way that we work with AI. So those skills will need to be developed outside of those LLMs.
Cool. Yeah, and I mean, from the moment the failure, I just had a shooting at a school, like a film shoot at a school, and they won a prize for the most modern school in Germany. They have like new concepts of teaching stuff, and they have like not this classic classroom with the rows and then the teacher in front, but they have like learning ateliers, they call it, and they have like little modules that they can set up, and actually pupils just floating through the rooms. They don't have to be somewhere really, but they work there and they work there, and if they want to go out for taking a break, they get a little sandwich. Is that sandwich you say? Yeah, probably, right?
Yeah.
And then they go out and they have their time, like 5 minutes for themselves, without a bell that tells them now it's pause and now we work. Because we humans are different in when we need a quick break, when we're hungry. Because some people come to school, like, I don't know, they leave the house at 5 in, others like 10 minutes before the bell rings because they're living very close. So this school is very close to using modern technology, and everybody has an iPad there, right? And they work a lot with iPads. And I think there's two sides with working with iPads. I know. It's like handwriting is better for your brain and memorizing stuff. I learned that. But the moment, and this is what we just talked about, failure is, I remember me sitting in the classroom so often in mathematics and didn't understand a thing that I was seeing on the paper. And I was so scared of raising my hand. And it's like, I don't get it still. I still don't get it. Can you please explain it to me? And when I'm sitting there, I imagine myself now in this floating learning atelier with my iPad and just telling the AI, I still don't get it. That is super nice. No problem, Paul. We can do it again and again and again. I have all day. And I love that. And there are like the information, and there are like the kindness, and the, that has to be not neutral. It can be very affirmative to a young person to help and say, hey, that's no problem. It's fine that you don't understand. But then I thought also, which AI do I want to have there? Because now when you have Grok, that is like super shitty with now history stuff in there, because his mental owner puts stuff in there that is wrong and is dangerous. So what kind of AI do I want in schools these days, or the next year? Where does that AI come from? Who owns this AI? Who puts the knowledge in, right? Also, super interesting question, I think.
Yeah, I mean, mirrors humans. Speaking, if we take the AI models as an analogy of teachers in schools, yes, you have one teacher that comes in, they're very stern, they're to the point, they have different personalities, and we're starting to see these AI models almost develop their own personality. Yeah. And how do they develop that personality? Based on the information we put into it. I think this speaks to a really important point, that when we discuss the future of AI, it's important to remember that AI is nothing more than a mirror to us. It mirrors the information that we put into it. So if we want to get the best out of AI in the future, then we need to look internally and ensure that we as a species have the emotional maturity required to mirror back the best parts of humanity.
Yeah, this is hard, because the AI is reading a lot of bad parts of the humanity, right? Mm-hmm. All the time on the internet. And now with Elon Musk building his what is Grokopedia? Have you heard about that? Grokopedia?
I have, yes.
God. Oh, let's not talk about it. All right. So we watched a little bit into the future, or looked a little bit into the future now. And what I want to talk about now is the fact that I think we are not talking enough about superintelligence coming to the world, coming to Germany. And I think we are not prepared for that. Yesterday, I attended a talk from our digital minister of transformation. And what I heard was a lot of good stuff. So he talked about ownership and digital sovereignty, and that Europe, and this is a good thing, it's more like not every country itself should have an AI and work on AI, but we as Europe should work together to build AI, which makes us much, much stronger. And it's also important because I think otherwise we don't have a chance against all this big money that is over there in the US or in China. We will not compete with an AI from Germany with the bigger models. But with the money they're putting into these models these days, the companies in US and China, it could happen that we have a super intelligence in a couple of years, maybe some say in 3 years, some say in 20 years, some 30 years, some say never. But we should put into consideration that we're gonna reach it, and are we prepared for that? And I was wondering, do you think Germany or we as human species are prepared for superintelligence?
Before we jump into this very important question, I would love to hear your take on what you just said about, rather than approaching superintelligence as country-specific or German-specific, what if we pull our brain power together and approach it as Europe-specific, so that we can compete with the US or China? I'm wondering, what do you see will be the gain by approaching it as Europe together rather than country specific? Where do you see the gain lying?
A couple of things. I think in Germany, so what do we need? We need data centers, right? Because we need
processing power.
Processing power. So as Germany having one of the highest electric prices, nobody builds data centers here, but we need data centers for the processing power. And we can only do or reach that amount of processing power to have those bigger models that can compete with China or in America if we either put down the prices on energy, or we work together in Europe and say, okay, let's all put our money together and build as much and as huge data centers as we can do and build this. So I think this helps a lot, having more data center, more compute to process. I think this is good. And also, I think from an idea of what kind of, and this refers to the point that you made before, what kind of models do we want to train? Who is accountable for that? Who is behind that? What kind of training data goes in there? If we decide that together as Europe, which is probably a hard thing to do, because Europe can hardly decide on anything really quickly, but that would help to do this together when we build up a force that transforms economy and maybe all humankind. I think, yeah.
So the platforms with which you see Europe competing with the US and China when it comes to AI are on the platform of computational and processing power. And the fact that approaching this as a union means that it maximizes the chance of having a more stable AI model. Is that correct?
Better words than
Okay.
I could pick them, yeah.
I don't think that's enough.
Okay.
I think those are absolutely required and in the right direction. But if we're specifically talking about what's it going to take to compete with the US and China, then it's going to require something more than just more computational and maximizing the stability of the model. It's going to require a complete cultural change, an approach to innovation. The EU, when we compare it side by side to the US, is far too risk averse in order to operate at the speed required to compete.
Agreed. So we need less guidelines, less restrictions, and say startups just build your models and let's see? Or what do you mean to risk averse?
There's a lot of bureaucratic hoops to jump in order to build. But also, generally speaking, from an investment perspective, the amount of risk that early stage investors are comfortable with is far lower here than it is in the US, which means that even if the idea, the early prototypes are built around ethics, morality, safe AI models like you were mentioning, to get the funds required to build those out and to take those to market requires a certain amount of comfort with risk and acceptance of risk. And that is much easier to achieve in the US than it is in Europe.
But would you think that, I mean, is that because of lack of money compared to the US? Or is it more a mindset thing?
It's a mindset. It's a mindset thing. Absolutely a mindset thing.
Okay. You experienced it probably yourself in your startup life.
It's a completely different culture. It's and it comes across in the type of questions that are asked, the approach to building, the speed at which a building is expected. Absolutely, there needs to be a cultural change in order for Europe to stay competitive with the US and China.
Okay. So taking more risks and building faster, or
being okay that not everything will be figured out to begin with.
Yeah.
And being okay with learning as you go, ongoing learning. So how do we, instead of how do we de-risk the next 5 years, how do we de-risk the next year? And then focusing on that and then building out and then using the learnings for that 1 year to then say, how do we de-risk the next 2?
I mean, this is especially in times of AI where you don't see what's coming like within the next 2 weeks. So how can you plan everything out, right? I mean, if you're building up a startup in Germany, you have to make a forecast for the next 5 years. How the fuck should I do that?
Exactly.
I'm happy if I know what happens until the end of the year, which is only 4 weeks, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I see that too. I mean, we don't have this classic entrepreneurial investors mindset that is there in the US. I'm still not sure if, because there is so much money lying around there, that they're like losing 100 million, who cares? If you lose 100 million in Germany, shoot, there's a problem. And Germany is building a data center and they put in 4 billion. And compared with the US, where Meta is putting 500 billion into data centers, that's a huge difference. How can you compete with that? And if you have the money, and if the stream comes in, because Meta is generating so much money all the time, they can risk to lose money by investing stuff. But we don't really have risking money, I think, in Germany.
That's it. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's the nail on the head there. And we're comparing one company with one country. So we're talking about one organization and you're comparing that to a whole country and potentially a whole union that have to come to a consensus on how this money is spent. It is inevitable that it's going to take a longer process. So yes, that's exactly the point.
I mean, I just read. We had this DeepSeek moment. If we just look back a little bit, this year, like beginning of the year, I think it was the DeepSeek moment, and the Nvidia stock went down the first time for last 2 years or something, and we saw that maybe with even less compute, we can build up models that are as competitive as the others, which is super great. And it's like, okay, we don't need more data centers and we don't need more compute. We can also do it by building better algorithms. And I think this is, for me at least, this is the one hope that I have, that Europe and Germany can compete with the companies over there in the States if we use our bright minds to create something like that, like DeepSeek. Europe needs a DeepSeek moment. So I think where we show it's not just like putting more and more in, but doing it smarter, right? Maybe it's our strong suit is not having the risk money, but thinking twice before doing something, and then maybe get a better outcome.
Yeah. I mean, there's a saying, measure twice, cut once. So I think that really speaks to this exactly. So in this case, okay, so this is the outcome that we want. Can we find something in the way that we build it to make it more efficient? So it's more not about competing face to face, but more about where can we make the process even 5 or 10% more efficient in order for us to compete on that platform instead. I think this is a wonderful opportunity, and I have a lot of hope that this is one place where Europe absolutely can compete.
Yeah, true. And on the other hand, if I have to decide if I use, like in 10 years, I use a model from Elon Musk or I use a model that was built in the EU, I see myself more using the one from EU. Maybe it's not that bright or that fast, but I have a better feeling using it than I would maybe have using a model that was built by a lunatic with too much money.
Yeah, I mean, and that also speaks more about how different cultures will put a greater emphasis on the intention or the ethics behind an AI model. I think generally there are places in the world that put a greater emphasis and greater importance into that in their decision making on which models to use, which tools to use, where is my data hosted is a question that's much more at the forefront of conversations in Europe than it is in other places in the world. That matters to a lot of people here. And I think it's important that it matters to a lot of people. So these are also places where Europe has a wonderful competitive advantage because these kind of topics are taken seriously and consumers and users of these tools are willing to pay to have clearer answers on these questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's assume we put enough risk money in the AI and it works out and all the promises from the bigger the data center, the more the intelligence, and we reach super intelligence and suddenly, I don't know, half of the population doesn't have to work anymore. I mean, we see a lot of people now losing their jobs already, and we still have the wording of AI will not replace your job, it will only enhance you, blah, blah, blah. I don't buy that bullshit. I think they're using the terms to like keep progress and building and not having the politics on their backs saying, slow down. First, we have to find some ideas how this will work out when the AI takes over most of the jobs. What do we do with all the people on the streets being bored? What do people do when we have a super intelligence? What do people do when we have okay, I have to cut that down. Love that when people call 100 times. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So when we hit super intelligence, and a lot of our jobs are replaced by AI, I wonder, are we as a human species prepared for that moment where we have to find meaning in life when not getting it from our work?
It's a beautiful question. It really speaks to the existentialism that the AI movement is bubbling up. I think it's such an important topic. And what you touch on there is twofold in my eyes. One is, what does it mean for a work? What do I do for work? But the other one is, what is the meaning of identity? And I don't think we can answer the first without addressing the second as well. I think they're so interrelated. So this speaks to existentialism. And for decades, our identity and our work as humans have been tied to output. And AI is forcing us to confront, what is my worth as a human being if it's no longer tied to productivity?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the core of the question. If my productivity is no longer determining my worth at work, then what is? And I have a couple of ideas on what that means. One you've already touched on, and that's deriving meaning. The second is, if the AI tools take care of the output and the productivity, then my role shifts not from the production house, not from the person producing the output, but the person curating it.
Mm-hmm.
If there is endless possibilities, then what sets one person apart from the other is being able to derive meaning from those endless possibilities and curate the content that is most crucial to see a goal in place.
Mm-hmm. Can you be more specific on that? Because like I have industries that have industries in mind where you have output that is pretty clear on what you need. Like you need boxes to put stuff in that's going to be built, and there's nobody sitting there folding stuff like that. Nobody is calculating how much boxes we're going to need for this month, for this area. So this can all be done by machines, by AI, whatever. You don't need that anymore. And what I understood with you is more like a creative output of work, or more one that has not a repetitive work.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. But we've seen this across other industries. AI, at the end of the day, is one technological movement in a long chain when it comes to humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And when we had the Industrial Revolution, when we had manufacturing plants emerge, we saw another change in how people work and how they create. So things like you just said, manually folding things, manually putting them in boxes, were suddenly outsourced to machines that were able to do that at a far greater pace and with greater accuracy than humans. So things like manual factory work was outsourced to machines. And now we're seeing the same thing again with AI. So some of the more repetitive day-to-day work will be outsourced. That output will be translated into a machine. So then our role as a human being is the things that machine can't do. So being able to look at morality, make a decision based on what's morally right, what's best for the group, being able to confront others and also have those difficult conversations that we discussed, looking at infinite possibilities and either making a decision independently or consulting another person or another AI tool on what is the best way forward, and then communicating that to other human beings, instilling trust, instilling faith, and instilling culture. Those are where human skill sets will go to, because a machine can't help build team culture in an organization that still rests with a human being.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that speaks to the point where you say we can have an AI bringing more human skills, more humanity into humankind, because this is the thing that you would need more, like that you have to have a feeling for what people need in your community, in your workspace, and whatever. So we shift our, and I think I get your point. We shift our output from producing to directing and to creating a space that people feel safe or something.
Yeah, I mean, AI won't replace humans, but it will replace humans that forget how to be a human. So what it won't replace is building teams, building trust, directing, as you said, being able to work with multiple people on an emotional level. That's where those tools cannot replace human beings.
Okay, I see that's going to be specific industries. Others maybe would need that so much, probably depending on. I mean, if you have a warehouse, right? I mean, I don't know, stuff like that, or a supermarket. If I go to the supermarket and I have these machines where I don't have somebody sitting at the counter anymore collecting stuff, so you just bring things in. I think a supermarket can be completely automated, right?
Yes,
Would
it
you say
can.
that? Yeah.
But again, I mean, we've automated so much about our work life already.
Yeah.
This is just the next layer on it.
Yeah.
It's part of humanity's drive for transformation and for growth, for old processes to be deemed absolute and redundant. We've done it countless times before. Cars replacing horses, like computers replacing notebooks. There's still a role for people to be manually writing things, but our day-to-day work is now is handled by computers, and AI is just going to be another step in that. There's nothing terrifying about that. That's just natural evolution, and it speaks to a growing importance in society for us to confront change and confront the discomfort of sitting in the unknown. And who's really going to flourish in the next phase in work careers are those that can handle the unknown best and can handle the discomfort and stay calm, collected, and present in navigating unknown situations. That's where the competitive advantage in the future will lie.
Super beautifully said. Yeah, this is what I wonder. How do we unlearn what we learned over the last centuries? How can we prepare students in school to learn that kind of skill set and going away from just producing stuff that's going to be sold, like being efficient, stuff like that? I mean, this has to be a huge shift in schools,
Yes,
in
exactly.
education, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it has to begin actually yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. So curriculums will require a transformation too, where, again, it's less about the output, but we spoke about this last time too. The importance will shift not on output, but how do we prompt these AI tools and understanding how to ask the right questions and ask the most crucial question to get the output that we desire. And the layer behind that is how do we develop the emotional maturity in order to handle all of this change? So everything's like a domino effect, and it needs to start in as early as possible with children. And that's the reality of it. It will take some re-education on the adult part and instilling new priorities in the next generation.
Yeah, I think there was also a very beautiful sentence that you said last time in our prep call. Is like, it's not about giving the right answer, but asking the right questions in the future, right?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
then the answers will be given maybe in the best way by the AI. But if you don't ask the right question, you will never get the right answer.
Yeah, then that takes a lot of self-awareness as well as model awareness, AI model awareness, being able to teach yourself and teach the younger generation on how to ask the right questions, how to ask the most important questions. Takes a lot of courage and takes a lot of self-reflection to be able to do that competently.
I mean, with your work, because we are both self-employed, so we do what we do because we love it. And we stand up in the morning and nobody forces us to do it. And maybe we earn some money, maybe we don't. But anyway, we do it because it comes from within. But I mean, not everyone is as fortunate at that as we are maybe at this moment. And a lot of people go to work and they do it because somebody says what to do, and it's an okay job. And they don't live for the job. They do it to live of it and do something afterwards. But this transformation, this shift then, to rethink what to do with these 8 hours. If you have to get up and maybe you're not loving to paint or garden or whatever, it's for me so hard to imagine where people pull their passions from, their drive for like getting out of bed every day then, when it's not told by somebody who employs you. How? Do you see it?
Yes, I think that's a question that has eluded humanity since the dawn of man. Where do I derive my sense of identity if it's not from my work? AI is just shining a spotlight on it. And we are in a really beautiful time to be alive right now, to be given the opportunity to ask these questions of ourselves and each other. Mm. There is nothing that we can do in the external world that will give us any sense of peace or self if we don't feel that internally. That feeling of enough needs to come from within. There is no tool that can answer that for you. There is no job. There is no relationship. And this is a time, a really important time in history for us to sit with that realization. And we're now given an opportunity to derive that sense of our own self from inside, not from out.
But I think this can be overwhelming for a lot of people, right? I mean, bearing this silence and this moment where you're, okay, what's now? So I think there's a lot of help needed and support from outside.
Yeah.
In this transition phase.
Yeah, the transition's always uncomfortable. Yeah. If it was all the great things that we have developed and created as human beings have been developed outside the comfort zone. We don't develop greatness inside the comfort zone. We never have. It's one of our greatest strengths and greatest weaknesses as a species. One piece of comfort is that we're all in the same boat, and there is a great sense of empathy and connection that can be built out of that. So this is also a wonderful opportunity to build communities around sharing support and creating space to have these difficult conversations without judgment and led through empathy and emotional vulnerability.
I have one last topic that I want to talk to you about, and that is creativity. And it somehow is connected to the topic that we just talked about. Because also what was big in 2025 was image models, video models getting better and better. We now have Sora and VO and all the other models, and they're making steps. They're still shitty on a lot of things, but it's getting better. And even OpenAI already has an app now out that is a competitor to Instagram, where you just only have AI content now. And we talked about it last time on the phone, I think, or after our recording. And because I tried it, and I saw two interesting things. For once, it bored me super quickly. And also, I'm not really a big fan of Instagram too, because I think it's repetitive, and it's the same with Sora for me. But on the other hand, what I found interesting is if you use it, you build your own cameo, so yourself in there, and then you can let this thing or yourself do whatever you want with it. You can mix it with the content of others that was created before already, or you can create your own content. And it makes you a little bit more active than just consuming Instagram or whatever other platform there is, because it makes just more sense if you bring your own stuff in there, and maybe your imagination is sparked in that moment where you see this flying ship steered by a llama, and you're like, that should not be a llama, this should be a pig. If we need that movie or that clip, there's another page. But then you say, okay, let me try this. So this is an interesting thing, or let me steer this flying ship, whatever. That is interesting. So we can do this now, and this is going to be better and better and better, and it's going to look so real. And there's also the side of scary, real, and fake news and stuff like that. We don't want to go into that now, but we talked about how we consume content, creative content, why we're doing it, and what's the future of content. And last time we spoke, you said that human-created content is going to be the gold standard that we're going to want in the future. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. Handmade will become sacred. in a future where anybody can make any content and machines can create perfect content, human-born imperfections will be priceless. And that means the way that we draw, the way that we paint, the way that we play music, the way that we speak to one another, all of those are born with imperfections. And they're born out of the fact that we are extending ourselves to create art or to create a meaningful connection. And in that is inherently, their mistakes will be made, inherently. And those mistakes are what speaks to the core of humanity. And that's where the value, the real pricelessness will be born in future.
It's more like a nostalgia that we see from vinyls or analog film, because that was also a thing of 2025 or also 24 already, that everybody shot on analog film already again. And there you have the grain, and it's not perfectly lit. It has some realness that people seek.
Realness, exactly.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I don't think it's about nostalgia. Nostalgia to me implies we're looking back and saying, oh, this is how it was done in the past, and we want to touch on or bring forward a time before we had access to this technology, before this technology existed, right? But I would challenge you to consider it from the flip, in a sense that we're looking forward, not to the past. And in the future, when machines can do so much for us and they can do it so perfectly, what remains underneath that? What makes us human if the machine is doing all of this creation for us? And what remains human is imperfection, being okay with making mistakes, learning a craft and the time that it takes to be present to learn something over an extended period of time. And all of that will exist even in 100 years when technology and AI is running so much. That is still part of being a human being, is making mistakes and learning new skills and making connections with other people. And if we really drill down, what gives us the opportunity to see that in our art and our creations now, and that's handmade. Handmade things will absolutely grow in value because of the rise in AI.
I get that point somehow, but I also wonder, I remember me being 12, 13 years old, skipping my piano classes because it was so stressful and I was bad. And my mother always paid and I never went. So what I can do now is go on Zuno or whatever platform and say, I want to have a piano track that sounds like this and this and that. Or maybe I play some keys and then let it enhance, and it's going to be amazing. And I didn't have to learn it. And when kids are now growing up, I try to imagine the conversation with their parents where they say, learn the piano. It's like, why should I? I can play any instrument that I want now.
Right. But now you're speaking about output again. Now you're speaking about output. So if that child's number one priority is to output a perfect song, of course they're going to take the AI tool. It gives them the result they need now. But if we're speaking to what will become priceless, then it's you buying a ticket for someone that has devoted 20 years of their life to play the piano live in front of an audience in a beautiful hall. Because you're seeing that individual and they've had to be present for countless hours in their life. And you can recognize the value in that, because in your mind, you're saying they could have just gone to the AI tool, but they didn't. Instead, they put all of their focus, their attention, their passion into this one practice, and that will become priceless.
Yeah, that would be nice. It somehow sounds romantic, and I love the future of that. Sometimes I'm also so pessimistic on humankind and think people just don't care. People just consume quickly and they don't care what it is. And at the end, price matters, and we want it now, we want it cheap. And this is majority. This is clothing, right? This is any kind of item that jumps into your eye. You want to have it now and you want to find the cheapest version of it. And educate people back to that point where the quality matters, and it doesn't need to be now. It can also be tomorrow. So you don't have to the song doesn't have to be perfect now. Also, the progress is interesting or good for you. Like, take the pace out.
Yeah. Yeah, yep. Slowness for sure, and authenticity, which you spoke about as well, will become qualities at a premium. Being able to take your time, having the luxury of slowness, and having the freedom to be authentically yourself and showcase that journey towards learning a particular skill, creating a particular piece of art or whatever it is, those will be valued even greater in the future. And that opens up a great lot of new opportunities for content creators that isn't just creating content via AI and putting it online, but actually documenting from a vulnerable place. I'm learning this, these are the mistakes I made, this is my journey along this path, whatever that path may be. People want to see that realness because that realness is what can't be replicated by a machine.
I think that's a very positive ending for our podcast, and I like that. And if AI can give us something, then it's time to be slow, if I understood that right.
Perfectly said.
Time to be slow, to make mistakes, to fail and try things out, not because we want to produce something, but we want to make the progress.
Yeah, and embrace transformation. It's just part of human nature, and it's such a privilege to be part of such a key part in our human history.
Dani, thanks again for this wonderful conversation again. I hope we're going to have one next year.
Yeah, I hope so too.
I mean, there's so much progress, so much happening. We have to update each other, of course, all the time. So that's fine. Thank you so much for tuning in again into the MediaNet AI Insights podcast. That was the last episode for this year. I wish everyone a wonderful Christmas. If you're celebrating it, Happy New Year, whatever. Do you want to wish something?
Happy New Year. And thanks so much for having me again. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too. Goodbye.
Bye.